Iran is bombing everybody. They've now been joined by Iraq. Afghanistan, the Pakistan country is thinking about backing Iran. Now you have the Houthis, the Yemenites. It's chaos down there. So that is a figurative anchor in your life. The people that just don't support you, in fact, further drag you down. You know how an anchor works. Obviously, you drop anchor, the weight, whatever it is, hits the bottom of the ocean floor, the lake or whatever, and it's anchoring. It's keeping you from moving. You got to cut those off quick. Learn how to prepare for what we call a black swan. And basically, it's not the predictable events that can wipe you out. It's the rare black swan events that can wipe you out. Get some hard cash, because when shit hits the fan, banks might be, hey, you can't withdraw any money. They might shut down the power grid so you can't use your credit cards anyways. So in times of chaos like this, in times of uncertainty like this, global or personal, in either case, there is an anchor that you actually need. And what is that? Yo, what's up, everybody? This is the N2N podcast. I'm your host, Dr. N2N, also known as Ninja or the Prolific Ninja on my socials and by my family, my fans, and my friends. And because my listeners are my fans, you can call me Ninja too. This is the N2N podcast, the alpha to the omega, the beginning to the end, talking about life, motivation, drive, success, self-improvement, and offering you morsels in this all-you-can-eat buffet called life. Here we are, the end of March, the cusp of World War III. But with you and I, we're just in the studio about to give you another great episode of this podcast that has been going on for almost 4 years. We're just on the edge of that anniversary, which is going to be a great, great time. But before we get into the topic of today's episode, I start the episode as I start my day, which is when I wake up in the morning, I give thanks to God and the universe for an opportunity to be great and hopefully inspire one person to live to the fullest controllable potential, hopefully more. But if that's you, you have an obligation to me, which is to restore the karmic balance of this free knowledge and free energy. You have to share the show. I don't want your debt, your karmic debt in any way. We do this show on my own dime, on my own time, full production crew, getting all of this free content out there to the universe. And so if you've benefited in any way, theoretically, you owe us something. And the way to repay that is just to share the show. That's all we need. That's how we've grown for the last 4 years, and that's how we're going to continue to grow for the next 4, and the next 4, and the next 4. So, as I say, if your knowledge swole, share the show. That is how we grow. And that is indeed how we've grown to tens to hundreds of thousands of views, listeners across the planet. We are an international show. And so that is our mission statement, which is to inspire people to live to their fullest controllable potential. And hopefully that's you through the content you get today and the content of all the shows that we've done weekly since the start of the show 4 years ago. And if that's you, please do share the show. That's how we grow. And here we are on the cusp of World War III. I told y'all to get ready. This is the year of the fire horse. It's getting absolutely fiery in the Middle East. Ever since the last episode where I said get ready, be prepared for chaos, it's coming down the pipe, y'all. Y'all don't feel it now. The people in the U.S. listening to the show, y'all don't feel it. But I know in Asia, Australia, in Europe, y'all are getting squeezed hard. Y'all are getting squeezed hard, and it's only escalating further. In fact, today it's a melancholic day because I saw, before this recording, I saw videos of U.S. military troops saying goodbye to their families, getting ready to head to the Middle East, like a ground invasion, like 10,000-something troops getting ready to head out, ship out. And it's very melancholic because, they're all crying, loving, holding on to their families, their parents, their siblings, their kids. I mean, it's basically a suicide mission is what I've understood, because Iran, if you know anything about the war, it's like the size of Europe. And 9 million people, 90 million people, there's absolutely no way to win a ground game. Like, this isn't Afghanistan, this isn't Iraq, this is something much larger, much more mountainous terrain. They've been preparing now for the better part of 50 years or so just for this moment. And so a ground invasion now is just the worst thing we could do. But really, with Trump, there are really no other options other than to admit defeat. So here we are. It's a melancholic day, but it is strapped in chaos. Iran is bombing everybody. They've now been joined by Iraq. Afghanistan, the Pakistan country, is thinking about backing Iran. Now you have the Houthis, the Yemenites. It's just like It's chaos down there. All because we did a 48-hour, what was supposed to end in 48-hour strike. Now it's lasted now over a month, and there are estimations that this could go on all summer. Who knows? But all this it means is more and more chaos. Now, I told you the last episode, the Strait of Hormuz, that was critical. 20 to 30% of global oil, but it's not about the oil. It's also about fertilizer. It's also about helium. Helium is involved in making chips. Helium is involved in making a lot of things. Like more than 50 to 60% of global helium goes through that strait. That 20-mile strait of Hormuz that Iran controls and is not letting any ships through is squeezing off everything. So what you have here is a difference between military warfare, which is what the U.S., strong, mighty, we're just going to bomb them, versus economic warfare, which is very strategic, right? Very, very strategic. Iran knows it can't go head-to-head on a military basis. So what do? They starve the planet economically. Like there are gas lines in India, Vietnam, Philippines, Japan, all Australia. They are literally out of diesel. And what relies on diesel? Farming equipment. And so if you can't farm, now you're affecting the food supply, and now you don't even have the fertilizer to even enhance the food supply. Everything plastic that you use, all this shit on my table, made from oil. Medicines are made from petroleum. Medical equipment, catheters, IVs, all this stuff, made from petroleum. So it is basically Iran saying, you invaded us, you're going to bomb us, you're going to try to wipe us off the planet. We're going to cut off economically everyone else. And there we have it. We have chaos. So what's the point of today's episode? Well, it's kind of analogous because there's going to be a lot of, naval ships and things. And I thought about all this. In chaos, there's, like for example, with boats, there's anchors. So in your life, there's actually, people think there's only one anchor, right? Get rid of people that anchor you down. Like you're trying to move to a destination and you have anchors that are dragging you, and so they can slow your progress or tie your boat still or prevent your boat from even moving, right? Definitely there's those type of anchors in your lives that, you just got to get rid of. These people that and they don't even have to be anchors. It's just like, okay, imagine you're in a boat and you're in a rowboat with whoever you're around. And you're rowing, and most people are rowing in one direction, but then you have 2 or 3 people, even one person rowing in the opposite way. That's impeding progress. Those kind of people are anchors because they're not allowing you to proceed or progress to where you want to go. So that is a figurative anchor in your life. The people that just don't support you, in fact, further drag you down. You know how an anchor works. Obviously, you drop anchor, the weight, whatever it is, hits the bottom of the ocean floor, the lake or whatever, and it's anchoring. It's keeping you from moving. It's slowing you down or creating drag. You got to cut those off quick. Cut those off quick. But people don't talk about the second anchor. The second anchor is actually one that you need. You need an anchor. There's a positive utility in anchors. When the climate gets crazy and you don't want to be thrown all about, it's good to have an anchor to keep you centered, right? Like let's say there's a tornado warning. They tell you to go into a closet or a door frame because that's anchored to protect you, right? So in times of chaos like this, in times of uncertainty like this, global or personal, in either case, there is an anchor that you actually need. And what is that? Those are your standards and values, okay? As you grow and progress, things get more chaotic. With success brings more decisions and situations that carry more weight. There's more significance to the outcome that can sway a lot of things and move a lot of things. It's not like the decisions aren't like, where are we going to eat tonight? And that's a major issue. In fact, as you get successful, you don't even bother with that. It could be the next issue is, okay, where do we want to allocate $5 million to grow? That decision, that uncertainty is the weight or the weight of that outcome carries more. Therefore, the decisions made carry more responsibility, more consequence. And so those are heavier decisions. And that creates a lot of uncertainty. And so the anchor that you actually need, again, we're cutting off the anchors that hold us back in chaotic times, and we're keeping the anchors that are necessary, which is your values and standards. Because you have to maintain, imagine that, again, that boat, and it's in a ocean storm, right? You have to maintain your compass, your direction as your anchor in terms of and figuratively in terms of your standards and values. Because along the way, you're going to get coerced or second guess yourself or third guess yourself or have different opinions and advice. And you should do it this way. You should do it that way. Nah, man, you don't want to do it at all. Or, man, you should go even, take more risk than you're comfortable with. All these kind of things or issues are the cloudiness in your thoughts and in your mind that's going to make you make decisions that might be rash, unreliable, uncertain. So in those moments, you have to have anchors of standards and values. And that is what's going to keep you grounded while everything around you is spinning. Okay? The values and standards that you have is going to keep you anchored to keep you moving in a steady direction while everything else is chaotic around you. And these standards is what? Kind of like your work ethic. Not getting into gray zones when decisions are very much black and white. Okay? It might be, I don't know, like who you can trust and talk to. Like those anchors that are good for you, not the ones dragging you back, dragging you down. Those anchors are the ones that will help guide you through this chaos. So what are the anchors right now in this global scenario of chaos, right? Obviously, we're here in the United States, wherever you are in the world, the war may be directly affecting you. If you're in the Middle East or around the area, yes, it's affecting you in a tremendous way. If you're in Europe and all these other areas, it might be affecting you economically. Here in the U.S., not so much yet. But what would be the anchors or the values to help you stay solid in this geopolitical chaos? A, preparation, right? Learn how to prepare for what we call a black swan. There's a great book called The Black Swan by Nasib Taleb, an economist, global economist. And basically, it's not the predictable events that can wipe you out. It's the rare black swan events that can wipe you out. So prepare for the black swan. Nobody at the start of 2026 felt or knew, if you weren't on an insider, that this war was going to come, and secondly, that this war was going to last this long. Nobody would have guessed that Donald Trump would have basically gone crazy and started an unreasonable war with no possible measurable outcome, right? Which leads me to the side note, okay? Going back to the Strait of Hormuz, you have got to be an idiot war strategist to not have predicted that if you attacked Iran, they would close off the strait. I mean, that's basically A causes B. Like you have to have foreseen this. And yet here we are, still attacked them, and they closed off the strait. And all the downstream effects of that, right? So that leads me to believe that they're not that stupid. In other words, this is intentionally done. The invasion was intentionally done to lead to the cutoff of the Strait of Hormuz. Okay? Like, no one would be that stupid to say, well, let's just attack and see what they do. No, it should be, man, if we attack President, they're going to cut off the strait. And if they cut off the strait, these things are going to happen. And we still attacked him. So this tells me that this was a contemplated invasion and contemplated attack. To what end? I have no idea. Some people say it's related to geopolitical things like, who's going to be the more dominant economic force in AI, right? The U.S. or China, right? Like China relies like 70% of the oil from the Middle East. We are oil independent. So if we choke off China, we take the lead in AI because we have the means of energy production for AI. Who knows? Maybe it's something grander or bigger than even that. Who knows? But the point is that this was done intentionally. And now we have this global chaos. And now in this global chaos, what can you do to prepare? So just prepare, a week, a couple weeks, 3 weeks worth of whatever you need in your life that is essential. Canned goods, canned meats, dry foods, things that are not, perishable, right? Supplies, not toilet paper like freaking COVID, but like things that you actually need. Toothpaste, soaps, sanitizer, medications. If you're on prescriptions, get more, right? Just in case, right? Many of y'all too young to remember this. I grew up in that era where there was an oil embargo. This is oil embargo in the 70s. Look it up. Saudi Arabia, the OPEC nations dropped oil production. So there were mile-long lines to get gas. Now here, it's not a question of dropping oil production. We're talking about no oil and the chaos that's going to create. Okay? Who knows what this is for, man? There's always this create the problem, provide the solution, create the problem, provide the solution. They become dependent on you. Maybe that's what this is. But it is coming. It is coming unless there's some dramatic ceasefire somewhere, somehow. It is coming. It just hasn't happened to the U.S. yet because we are oil independent. However, we rely on blending our oil with the Middle East oil to get the actual gas that goes in your car. So there's many levels to this thing, but definitely preparation is one of those anchors, okay? Preparation, in fact, is the anchor that'll alleviate any chaos or any stress-related chaos if it ever comes, this black swan, which it might be a white swan very soon because I think it's coming, okay? Get some hard cash because when shit hits the fan, banks might be, hey, you can't withdraw any money. They might shut down the power grid so you can't use your credit cards anyways, right? If you can afford it, maybe satellite internet. People don't know this, but 90% of the internet traffic globally is actually under the water. Look it up. There are underwater internet fiber cables traversing the entire planet that allegedly provides actually all the internet access worldwide. And guess where a lot of that runs through? The Middle East. And guess what? Iran has already threatened to cut the cable. And if they do cut the cable, now they control the strait and they've limited data transfer. Right? Crypto. You might load up a little bit on crypto as a means of transfer. Now you're saying, well, what about internet? Well, there's ways to transfer crypto without the internet. So if you need to barter or exchange value for something, at least you have something. Hard cash, gold and silver, maybe even some copper, and then some crypto. This is just advice. This is not like I'm telling you this, and I'm by no means a survival expert. These are just things to be aware of to prepare in your standards and values as an anchor to get through this chaotic season, which might last through summer. Okay, y'all thought COVID was bad and the lockdown and all that. If it gets to the extreme, which there's a possibility it gets there, I'm not saying it's probable or it's going to happen, but if it's possible, got to be ready. Okay? Get your affairs in order. Get your documents right. Get to your parents. If you have elderly parents, make sure they're good. These are the things that'll keep you sane when it becomes chaotic. This whole Middle East thing is a black swan out of nowhere, okay? Unless you were an insider, and there's a lot of insider trading. You just look it up between what the president says and when the market's open and who's taking advantage and all these large, massive orders. But if there's one thing to look at, there are traders that are speculating that gold can be north of $10,000 to $12,000 now by the end of the year. There are some traders that speculate that silver could be in the $5,000 to $6,000 range by the end of the year. Just to let you know, right now gold is at 4,000 something and silver is at like $70. So if they're projecting that by the end of the year, what factors would drive that price move. All out world war. So there's bet hedging, there's situational hedging, there's a lot of these things, a lot of chaos, a lot of confusion. But again, the only thing you can focus on, it goes back to the last episode. What can you control? What you do, what you say, how you feel. That's it. And those are the standards, the anchors that you actually need right now in this chaos that is about to come, absent some wild ceasefire agreement, which the possibility of that happening, very low, because Iran has already put out their terms. They're basically saying, hey, give us $1 trillion plus to rebuild our country. We control the strait forever, and we control and never attack us again, and get the hell out of the Middle East. Those are terms that the U.S. cannot live with. And so if we can't live with it, and we've drawn the line in the sand, we as in the U.S., not everybody here, if that's our line in the sand and they have their line in the sand and they're way far apart, as an attorney, we call that an impasse. And an impasse means what? More conflict. So for me personally, again, I'm no war expert strategist, no prepper, I'm just me. How I look at this and I connect the dots, we're headed in that direction, unfortunately. For what reason? I have no idea. There was no, when this happened, there was no logical explanation why we would have attacked Iran. It wasn't because they have nuclear capabilities. It wasn't that at all. It's definitely not that. So the other reason is geophysical, control the strait ourselves, control the oil, something to that effect. But the idea that a whole nation would roll over and let us do that is short-sighted at best. But this was a planned thing because anybody could have predicted you attack Iran, they're going to close the strait. And they close the strait, they're going to fuck us all up economically. And sure enough, here we are. In the U.S., beware, we don't feel it yet, but there are already farmers in America saying they cannot afford the diesel, much less get the fertilizer for harvest. And right now is planting season. So think about when the harvest is. You got to have some foresight. When the harvest happens, fall, August, September, October, if you don't plant now, you're not going to have shit then. That's the way the cycle goes. So if A causes B, you know what's coming. You can anticipate what's coming. So again, I know there was a lot here, and it was because there's a lot on my mind. Just watching these soldiers get deployed got me kind of, in a certain way. It's coming, okay? You have to have your standards in place. You have to have that anchor locked down, and you got to cut off all the other anchors, these people that are holding you back, cut them off. So you're only left with the only anchor that matters, which is your standards and your values. And I'll probably be setting off more reels, short-form content as the war progresses, just because I feel compelled to rather than our weekly episodes, but it's coming. So be ready. And so have those standards in place, get yourself prepared just in case. It might be 2 or 3 days worth of stuff if that's what you can afford. It might be a day. Lean in on your community around you. Let them know what's going on, how you feel about this. Let them know that you're trying to prepare, right? And that they should get prepared. And so when this happens, it's not chaos like during COVID and we're fighting each other over toilet paper, where we actually come together and start supporting and helping one another get through what could be a very tumultuous time. I go back to many episodes. I've said this before. I feel we're in a 100-year cycle. If you follow my posts and you follow what I post on other people's threads, we're at a 100-year cycle. The Great Depression was 1929. Here we are, 2026, not far away. And if that's coming around the corner, we are in for a rude awakening if you're not prepared. I don't say this to be hyper dramatic. I say this as a cautionary, just in case, because your standards and your values will be that anchor to help you build or help you stay stable when it becomes more than chaos. Okay? So with that, if you're being deployed in the military, thank you so much. Very, very much love and support our military. I know this mission is basically, if you listen to all the experts, this is a suicide mission. because there's no way we can win a ground game in Iran. There's absolutely no way. And maybe that's the point. Maybe the point is, hey, they're killing off so many guys, we just got to nuke them. And then here we are. Who knows? These are all conjectural things, speculative. But you got to think about if one thing happens, what leads to the next and what leads to the next. Maybe that's the end game. Maybe that's the goal. Who knows? There's whole, not being anti-Semitic because I have many, 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 many Jewish friends. But this whole faction of Israel that might be, acting in nefarious ways. Who knows? Maybe they have influence over Trump. Who knows? We're not there. Or we don't know, or we might never know. However, this just makes no sense. It's illogical to me. So, yet it's being done. And again, we can't control that. We can control our thoughts, actions, and feelings. And in those instances, just prepare. So with that, I'm going to end the episode as I end every day, which is when I go to bed at night. I thank God in the universe to hopefully have lived to my fullest controllable potential. Hopefully have inspired at least one person to live to their fullest controllable potential. And if that's you, again, we work this on a karmic exchange. You got to share the show. If you're knowledge swole, share the show. That's how we grow. Glad to be, quote, sponsored by my own companies, West Loop Law, Kira Connector, MyMedi.ai, Naya, 1925 Tequila, Legacy X Token. All these projects, you can visit them on their URLs or on our socials. Support those. And that's another way to support this show. Because, again, we do this on my own dime, on my own time. So the only way we grow is with you sharing the show and supporting my projects. With that, be great today, but be even more grateful. And I'll bring you another episode very, very soon.